Well, our newsmaker tonight comes from neighboring Afghanistan. Kandahar Treasure's founder, Rangina Hamidi, left Afghanistan in 1981 when she was just 3 during the Soviet occupation. Rangina then returned to Kandahar in 2003 with a personal commitment to help lead change in her country with a uniquely Afghan style of embroidery. She's enabled women to earn financial and social empowerment through an embroidery style, kha-mahk, that's one of the oldest and purest forms of embroidery art in the world.
Trying to do business in a war zone brings challenges beyond anybody's imagination.
She is the founder of Kandahar Treasure, an enterprise employing over 450 women who embroider garments and housewares for the domestic and international market.
When a woman earns, it gives her power beyond our understanding and imagination. The future of Afghanistan depends on its women. I cannot count on the men who have murdered, who have killed, who have destroyed to rebuild my country.
Rangina Hamidi, the founder of Kandahar Treasure, joins us live now in our studios here. Thanks so much for coming in. Very powerful words there from that video of yours. I remember, like, even in our economics class, one of the first lessons that we learned in our trade and aid course was that if a person is hungry, you don't give him fish, you teach him how to fish.
Absolutely.
And that's what you were doing with the women in a completely different socio-political environment.
Absolutely. After 30 years of war and destruction in my country, when I came to help rebuild my nation, all I saw was the international community had created a nation of beggars. We were begging and depending as a population on the world to feed us and to provide for us. And when I came and I saw the skill that these women had, I said, there's no way that I'm going to let us continue living in this poverty depending on others. Why not stand on our own 2 feet with the skill that we have and prove to the world that we can build our lives and our country with the sweat, with our own sweat.
With your own sweat. And what you're doing here is you're giving them financial independence, which in that socio-cultural milieu is extremely important in more ways than one.
Absolutely. We've been in operation for more than 8 years now in Kandahar, and people often question us, how can you work in Kandahar, in a place that is still in war? And my answer is simple. If you work within the cultural, traditional boundaries that is defined and set by the society, there is absolutely no problem. And I promise you that even if not that there's a question of Taliban taking over, but say if an extremist regime comes to power, and in a way it's still in power because the Taliban mentality still controls the mindset of the Afghan population, there's no problem for us women working like this because it's a home-based initiative. We don't ask the women to do anything out of the ordinary, and in fact we are even enhancing their life by providing money and information that they don't otherwise get.
And the other aspect that it's helping in is in fact getting the men on their side because they have this financial independence.
Men love our project, men love our work because they tell us when we've interviewed some of the male beneficiaries or male members of the families, they say the women have stopped nagging us about, simple things like shoes and medicine and clothes for their children and their wives. And remember, the men are not, these are not rich families, so it's not that the men have a lot of money on their hands to spend on the family either. They are making the most to provide for the families in terms of food and shelter. But the little everyday needs of women are often not met because the men can't meet. But this project, or with this initiative, the women are now able to spend freely. And the one beautiful thing about the Pashtun society is that it's a shame for men to ask money from their women. So the women get to keep 100% of their own earnings.
And talking about the conservative nature of society, especially with the women that you're working in, it's having wider ramifications. For example, for the girl child, they're being able to extend them not getting married.
Absolutely.
The men are supporting them.
Absolutely.
How does that work?
We have examples after examples in our 350 plus women cooperative where mothers have been able to buy their girls marriage time. So if they were not bringing an income, the father really wanted to basically get the dowry and get the girls married off at ages 13, 14. But we have now examples of girls who have remained unmarried until about age 18, 19.
Because they're contributing financially to the family.
And so even though this is not a direct objective of our work, indirectly we're creating a lot more benefits for the women than we can easily
Tell us a little bit more about kha-mahk.
This kha-mahk is a hand embroidery, and for those who are experts of traditional embroidery, they will know. But it's not a it's not your traditional embroidery where you have imprints beforehand and then you embroider. You always need a perfect weave, 90-degree angle weave fabric, because the work is counted. So meaning when the women creates one little flower, this motif is called the koknar. She remembers the counting of this motif, and then she repeats that for the entire fabric. And when you know it's handwork, because you can look through the back and see. And this is a very typical and traditional design, but the designs vary, the sky's the limit for the designs. And many of these women create these designs completely from their head. They don't have a booklet, there's nothing. So it's really an art skill that the women pass on to their next generation. And it's been going on for at least a couple of centuries. Unfortunately, the war has lost any resources that we could really research to find out really the origin of this work. But it exists in Kandahar, and we're reviving it and making it available to the world.
NDTV's cricket app, Android and iPhone, fastest scorecard, special analysis, and much more. Download free. ndtv.com/apps.